The Shroud of Turin, a burial cloth bearing what many believe is the actual image of Jesus after his crucifixion. For over 600 years, the debate has raged: sacred relic or medieval forgery. But when scientists recently extracted DNA from its ancient fibers, what they discovered left even the most experienced researchers utterly speechless. Deep within this mysterious fabric lies evidence that challenges everything we thought we knew. The genetic analyzers at the University of Padua uncovered results that shattered both skeptical theories and traditional religious explanations. The shroud was no longer just fabric, it became a map, tracing a journey that began 2,000 years ago, recording suffering so precise it cannot be reproduced, and revealing evidence of an energy burst that modern physics still cannot explain. The Shroud's modern investigation began on May 28, 1898, when amateur photographer Secondo Pia was granted rare permission to photograph the relic in Turin. Working late that night in his darkroom, Pia nearly dropped the glass plate in shock when the image emerged. On the photographic negative, where light should turn dark and dark should turn light, there appeared not a blurry stain but a sharp, astonishingly detailed positive image. A face with deep-set, closed eyes, a broken nose, a mustache and forked beard, bruising on the right cheek. For the first time, the figure hidden in the linen was no longer a shadow. It was a man. Here's the impossible question. Who in the Middle Ages understood the principles of photography 800 years before it was invented? The shroud behaves like a photographic negative created by someone who had no way to preview or verify the result. The human eye cannot perceive the world in negative, let alone reproduce it with such precision. This was the first crack in the wall of skepticism. In 2015, Professor Johnny Barkac's team at the University of Padua was granted unprecedented access. Using sterile microvacuum devices with ultrafine filters, they collected microscopic particles from deep within the fabric's fibers. Dust, pollen, and DNA sealed there for millennia. The scientists expected simple answers: traces of a single individual, or perhaps pigment residue from a medieval artist. Instead, they found something that defied explanation. The DNA results revealed not one person, but a genetic portrait of humanity itself. Published in Nature Scientific Reports, the findings sent shockwaves through the scientific community. They found Middle Eastern DNA from the Druze people, an ancient, isolated community whose genetic markers are remarkably stable. Western European DNA appeared as expected, since the shroud has been in Europe since the 15th century. But then came the astonishing part: North African DNA from Egypt and Ethiopia, South Asian markers from India, and most incredibly, East Asian DNA from China. China, India, Africa, Europe, the Middle East, all encoded into one ancient cloth. If this were a medieval forgery created around 1350 in France, how could Chinese and Indian DNA possibly be present? Medieval Europe had no globalization capable of leaving such widespread genetic traces. The answer was remarkable. The shroud is a traveler. When scientists mapped the genetic data, they discovered it aligned perfectly with an ancient historical route many scholars had dismissed as legend. According to Byzantine, Syrian, and Arabic sources, the shroud journeyed from Jerusalem to Edessa in the 2nd century, where it remained for centuries. Edessa stood at the crossroads of the Silk Road, where caravans from China, India, Persia, and Arabia passed through. Pilgrims, merchants, and diplomats came to venerate the relic. They breathed near it, kissed it, touched it. With each encounter, microscopic traces, skin cells, hair, sweat, settled onto the cloth. Layer upon layer. Century after century, the DNA of the world accumulated like invisible dust. The journey continued to Constantinople from 944 to 1204, then to Athens, and finally to France in 1353. A medieval forger could not have gathered DNA from China, India, and Africa, nor planted these traces to deceive genetic scientists 600 years later. This biological record proves the shroud's antiquity and Eastern origin more convincingly than any radiocarbon test. But DNA was only half the story. The other half was written in plants. Israeli botanist Professor Avinoam Danon and Swiss forensic scientist Max Frey independently examined pollen grains trapped in the fibers. They identified pollen from 58 different plant species, 17 from Europe, but the majority from the Middle East, Turkey, and the Anatolian steppes, perfectly matching the ancient route. Then came the most striking discovery: plants that grow nowhere else on Earth. Species found only in the narrow corridor between Jerusalem and Jericho. At the center was Gundelia tournefordii, a thorny desert thistle. Its pollen accounted for nearly half of all samples, an enormous concentration around the head and shoulder areas. This plant blooms around Jerusalem during early spring, precisely during Passover, the crown of thorns. No medieval forger could have obtained pollen from plants native only to Palestine and applied it invisibly at a microscopic level. Pollen cannot be painted. It's an invisible seal, a geographic fingerprint that cannot be forged. For years, skeptics claimed the reddish marks were just pigments. That claim collapsed in 2017. Using transmission electron microscopy and Raman spectroscopy, Professor Giulio Fanti's team analyzed the material at the nanoscale. They saw not pigment, but blood, human blood type AB, one of the rarest types. But this wasn't the blood of a healthy person. Within it, scientists identified nanoparticles of creatinine and ferritin bound to hemoglobin in extreme concentrations that appear only under one condition: severe fatal trauma with prolonged torture, dehydration, and massive muscle damage. This is a biochemical scream of pain. The man wrapped in this cloth was beaten to a condition incompatible with life before crucifixion even began, showing evidence of over 100 blows. The chemistry tells a story no paintbrush could ever reproduce. An artist cannot imitate the biochemical signature of polytrauma, kidney failure, and hypovolemic shock. The blood also contains unusually high levels of bilirubin, released by the liver during extreme stress, which preserves red coloration for centuries. The blood of a tortured man remains red. This isn't mysticism, it's biochemistry. The shroud defies explanation. It's not a painting, it's a holographic imprint carrying a 3D anatomically accurate image, formed by an unknown energy burst, lasting less than a billionth of a second. Layer by layer, discipline by discipline, biology, chemistry, physics, geology, the evidence points to Jerusalem 30 to 33 AD. Perhaps one day we'll understand the flash of energy that left this trace. Until then, it stands as the fifth gospel, an eloquent witness to a world-changing event. Do you believe science will ever fully explain a miracle? Or are some doors meant to remain open to the heart?